this computer. Recording. Excellent. Okay, guys, so topic today is dealing with different kinds of shots. That's going to be our sort of theme today. So we're going to sort of look at sort of like four sort of main ones that we're going to be sort of looking at sort of dealing with. We're going to be sort of looking at how to sort of deal with sort of like a loopier ball, how to deal with like a low slice ball coming in, how to deal with a fast ball, and sort of how to sort of deal with like a short, easier ball that sort of like sort of come in. So it's sort of kind of looking at like the sort of different ones and like how best to sort of deal with it in terms of tactical sense and a technical sense as well. So like the one we'll sort of start with first is sort of that loopier type ball. So almost like how I was discussing with like Jill earlier. So someone's like floated one back up and it's sort of floating back towards you. We've got sort of like a couple of ways we can sort of deal with this type of shot. So one thing we don't really want to do is get caught under the ball. So what I mean by that is where the ball's bounced up and we're suddenly playing shots like above our sort of head height because we haven't sort of judged it well. So what we've got is the safest route to start with in terms of like keeping the rally going is essentially what we want to do when it's sort of floated back up towards us is sort of back up behind the baseline, and what we're effectively trying to do is just judge the ball so it drops to our sort of waist height. And if we judge that well, essentially then what we're doing is playing our normal rally technique, which then makes it a lot easier to sort of replicate and sort of hit the shots that we're used to. What we need to do as well in this sort of particular ball, though, is also recognise that, especially if we've been going a few steps back behind the baseline, is change our sort of trajectory of the shot. Often we find people that sort of move back, they play the same rally shot as if they're by the baseline, and then their shots sometimes go in the net or drop very sort of short, leaving yourself a little bit vulnerable. So when you are behind the baseline, like by sort of 2 or 3, 4 steps, it's then you let it drop to waist height, so it's easy to play, but it's understanding you've got to give it a little bit more height and a little bit more speed to actually sort of create the right sort of trajectory of the rally shot. So that's the easiest way sort of to deal with that one. How we sort of generate more speed, because we have got a little bit more time and we want to create a little bit more power, is we want to use our legs a little bit more in those sort of circumstances. So we get ourselves back, and then what we can do is, can't really see me, but like load with our legs a little bit more so we can then actually drive into the shot, because bigger body parts is what's going to drive the shot for us. What we don't want to do is get back and try and create too much with our arm when we're sort of behind the baseline. So it's just a bit more repeatable and a little bit more stronger from further back. So that's usually what I describe as sort of plan A for that sort of dealing with that shot, and that's going to allow us to rally. If we're sort of looking to sort of play like a sort of stronger game, if someone's essentially sort of pushed it back sort of towards us, remember we sort of talked the other week about tactics and like advantage. Now obviously if we've got them forced, like they're pushing it back, we've got the advantage in that situation. Now, if we sort of go back behind the ball, if they got it deep enough and we move back, then we're choosing a rally shot. It's essentially, they've neutralised the point. We're trying to rally it back. If we want to try and sort of keep the advantage, obviously it depends with our sort of skill set here, is what we do in this situation is what's called taking the ball on the rise. So it's like essentially as the ball comes sort of over the net towards us, it comes over, it sort of bounces. At the moment we're talking about is it comes up, it drops behind the baseline, it's bound here to waist height. That's where we play that one. To keep the advantage, it sort of loops over, it bounces up, and on the way up, that's the point we want to take it if we're looking sort of taking advantage and sort of put a bit more pressure on the person. And again, on the way up, we don't want to be sort of taking it on the way up and getting caught up here. It's about sort of letting, as it bounces up, looking sort of play it around sort of chest height as it's sort of coming in. What this does is, in terms of keeping advantage, is it's that one thing about controlling time, which we sort of talked about the other week. So by taking it a bit earlier, as it's sort of coming up, it's taking time away from our opponent, which is then going to make it a little bit hard for them to get back in position or everything else like that. And we can actually sort of play like a sort of slightly more direct shot, sort of forwards to backwards, rather than sort of low to high, which we would have done on the rally ball. So off the same sort of ball, we've got decisions to be made. So are we going to rally it or are we trying to attack it? Because, and again, like what we can do and can't do. But if if we can attack it, we can choose to, or we could choose to sort of back up and try and rally it. You wouldn't really want to come forwards, take it on the rise, just to rally it and then recover back. So it's picking one of the two. In terms of like the technique with the one on the rise, so it's very much a judgment thing. We've got to understand the flight of the ball to get ourselves set up to be in the right place, because it's bouncing up towards us. If we got it a bit wrong, we're actually putting ourselves at a disadvantage. So the understanding the flight of the ball being in the right place is important. Second thing, we know we're already sort of premeditated that we're going to be taking about this sort of height. So in our preparation, we wouldn't, as we sort of more naturally go with our forehand, and we sort of go low to high, hit through. This is kind of our rally standard shot. If I was coming forwards, I'm taking it on the rise. I've got my racket prepared higher. So as I come through to hit it, I'd be sort of more leveling out as I sort of play the shot. So sort of coming in, hitting here, rather than sort of low to high, because this will create more height over the net, which I don't want on this particular one. I want to hit through the ball more. So it's preparing early, got the racket up, that I can come through and impact it the right height, rather than obviously moving forwards, not prepared, and then rushing it and finding myself in sort of trouble. So with our first one, obviously that sort of flighted ball, it's early decisions. We've got to read the ball, make a decision, get ourselves into the correct position, either forwards or backwards. Like hesitating, getting stuck under the ball is where sort of big problems sort of occur. And then like from that, it's then we sort of trying to execute accordingly to the type of shot we're trying to play. Both are sort of quite effective, and it's just reading the game in terms of what we're sort of trying to do and achieve in that situation. The sort of next one, are you back with us, Roots?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'll just add in something before we move on. So just tell me to shut up if it goes all robotic or you can't hear me. First thing is just to remember that there's no right and wrong with those. What we want to try and avoid mainly is where you get caught halfway between the two. And that's probably what Ben and I see the most, is where people are unsure as to whether they should be moving back or taking it on the rise, or maybe they have the idea of taking it on the rise but aren't confident enough with the movement forwards, and they end up hitting the ball. You end up hitting the ball around head height, normally on the back foot. And that's the sort of shot we want to try and avoid. Those deep loopy balls. As long as you do one of these two options, it doesn't matter whichever one you feel more comfortable with. It's just about not getting caught between the two, because that's where you might not make too many mistakes, but it's never going to be a very effective shot if you're hitting that ball around head height. The other thing I'll just say is when we're taking the ball on the rise, the hardest part about that is the timing. As I'm sure if you guys have ever tried to do that, trying to get the timing right when you're taking the ball as the bounce is harder than when it's dropping towards. A couple of reasons for that. First of all, the ball's travelling faster. It hasn't yet levelled out and started to drop again. But also you've had less time since we're hitting it effectively straight after it bounces. Very similar to like a half volley. So you've got a lot less information about the flight of the ball. So for those reasons, the timing's really difficult. One thing you can do to really, really help that, I think if Ben shows us in a sec, is you can basically try and synchronize yourself with the ball. It's a very, very simple thing to do, and it's something you can work on at home, is you want to basically move down towards the ground as the ball's going down, and as the ball's coming up from the bounce, as you contact, you want to be on the way up. So this can be from a very small, subtle knee bend, but if you do it at the right time, it's unbelievable the difference it makes. So you want to basically go down as the ball's going down, and then up as you're hitting the ball as you're going up. Now, this is something we should really be doing as much as possible with all our shots, but when you're taking it on the rise, it will really, really help. And it's quite a simple work on. So I don't know if you've got.
Yeah, we got majority of that, I think. A couple of bits of robotic, but I was getting the main parts. Okay, yeah. So that sort of covers that sort of first sort of type of ball. Second one, we sort of thought it's very sort of common that again, with Eliswick being AstroTurf courts, we've got to deal with a lot, is where someone sort of slices a ball towards you, and it sort of stays low over the net, and then obviously then skims off the floor and sort of stays low. With this one, like in mind in particular, we're sort of thinking of the one where it almost draws you inside the court a little bit as well, rather than the one sort of more floating towards you and sort of keeping behind the baseline, able to play the shot. It's sort of the one that causes some more issues. So again, it comes back to like what we can do, what we can't do, and it's understanding different things that allow us to achieve sort of certain outcomes. So first thing is that if we are under a little bit of pressure, it's almost that we're being forced into almost slightly defending with this sort of type of shot, and it's understanding like what we need to do to be effective enough to sort of deal with the shot. So like the first option that we've got, which is the easiest one, is essentially almost just play it as like either a push or a sort of slice back. So it's a lot easier sort of playing a slice than it is playing a topspin, because it's like a little bit lower already. So so you can sort of imagine as sort of coming forwards, you can either sort of like push the ball back or sort of down low, and you can then sort of slice it as you come forward. So it's where you're almost drawn into the court and slice, or drawn into the court and sort of push it back. In terms of sort of like the ball outcome with those sort of ones, we're actually looking to keep it still quite low over the net, back to the other person. We're not looking to scoop this ball up. So the trajectory usually stays quite low, coming back as we sort of play it. And ideally, we're looking to sort of get it into like the 3/4 length of the court. So getting it back sort of deep, because on those particular ones, it's not about power. It's just about sort of keeping it back deep. And then the other person's not in a strong position to either play another attacking shot. They're keeping them rallying. In like the sort of the technical sense, where common mistakes sort of happen is where people stay too high when the ball is low. If I stay sort of too high when the ball is low, I'm sort of almost here sort of scooping it up this way. So it's creating that height. Whereas if I've got a low one, it's almost getting yourself a wide base with your feet, getting yourself sort of down lower, and that's going to allow you to play the shot more effectively as it's coming in, rather than being high, because if we're too high, all we can do is scoop up, which is then going to lift the ball sort of straight away. So those sort of the two sort of like the easier sort of types of ways of sort of dealing with that lower sort of slice ball. So yeah, sort of pushing back or slicing back. When we are able to do a little bit more, this is where like a top spin shot comes sort of a little bit more effective, because it's like below the height of the net. As we hit it, we've got to get it up and down. So if you hit flat, it's going to go up, and it's going to go too far past the baseline. So knowing how to whip the ball up and down is going to allow us to sort of, off a slice ball, be able to sort of generate speed back and sort of quality shots. So it's not necessarily attacking. It's sort of think of it as like a rally plus type sort of shot in this sort of situation. Now, how we sort of play this one, I'll show the sort of forehand, because our forehand, this is one we're going to likely to use more. Off our sort of normal rally shot, obviously we've got our sort of bigger sort of loops coming into the shot. Now with this one, we're drawn forwards, and it's low. So this sort of element here is not really going to make that much benefit. It's actually going to make it a little bit harder for us to execute it. So think of it as almost sort of simplifying. I like to sort of sometimes think of it as like a hand C. So I've got my loop normally here, big sort of shape. Almost if I'm just getting the racket around my hand, so it's sort of out to the side, but it's staying a little bit lower, allow me to drop the racket a little bit lower, and then it's going to allow me to whip up through the ball. So I'm getting a lot more speed through my arm on this one, compared to one at the baseline where, you know, the idea of the looped one before, we get back, we're big, we're using our legs to sort of drive through. On the short, lower one, which spin, it's smaller, but faster through this area here. Because we're not looking to obviously generate the power through the court as much, we're just looking to whip it up and through. This is going to allow us, just by sort of coming through here with our sort of hand sort of whipping up and through, not a huge amount of shoulder turn, because we're coming into the court, we haven't been able to set ourselves as stably, and whipping through here. So it's almost this rotation through the arm this way and the hand this way. It allows us to whip up and through. If you saw me from the side, you'd probably see on this sort of forehand as well that it's not particularly going forwards much. You almost see that sort of windscreen wiper here. So I'm coming forwards and whipping it up and through. That allows me to get it up and down quickly, generate more speed on the ball, which is obviously going to make it a little bit hard for the person to deal with. And like, because it's not going backwards and forwards so much, I'm converting it more to sort of spin. as I sort of play the shot. So that particular one there is how to sort of be effective if you want to add some more in, because like I said, when the ball's low and you're already inside the court, there's less distance to the baseline already. We've got to actually trajectory hit it up more. So if we hit too hard, we're going to hit it long. So that's where like the first stage is push it back, or like we even see like on the forehand the slices now and again. I wouldn't recommend that too much, but on the backhand we can slice it. It's a bit easier. But if we're wanting to add that little bit more speed, we've got to create that whipping effect that comes from like the hand and sort of short action through here to get it up and down, and that can be quite effective when we're sort of playing. We'll try Roops. Let's check your connection. Anything you want to add to the short low one?
Yeah, can you hear me? I'll just test for you.
Yeah.
I think what you've just said there is brilliant. It's what we spoke about earlier, and it's just so important to understand that obviously you're inside the court when you're dealing with like a low slice around the serve, that much closer to your opponent's baseline. So you need to remember that the ball's below the height of the net, or close to the baseline. So basically, you've got to get the ball to go up and then come back down at a much shorter distance. So for that point, for that reason, what Ben was saying about the racket head coming up the back of the ball a lot more and coming through the back of the ball a lot less is really, really important. So we're trying to add a lot more topspin onto the ball and a lot less sort of power through the back of the ball. So we're not hitting through the ball, so we're really using the wrist forearm to come up and across the back of the ball, because that's what's going to make the ball go up and down over a shorter distance. I think another thing dealing with slicing those low ones is the impact of the slice spin on your racket. So I don't know if you've ever experienced that before, but when you're dealing with quite a fast slice or someone that's got quite a heavy backspin going on the ball, as it hits your racket, naturally the spin makes the ball want to die and just go down off your racket. And that will very often make you hit the net, or sometimes the ball hits the ground before it even hits the net. That's because of the backspin. So again, by using the forearm and the wrist to really rip up the back of the ball and really get friction between the strings and the ball, that's what's going to counteract their backspin and then give you the ability to actually control the ball back. So you do need to, if you're going to go for that top spin option, it's one of those shots where you've really got to sort of believe in the technique and you've really got to commit to it. But if you do, you'll get that desired effect. You will get the control to actually bring the ball up and down again. If you go at it sort of half-heartedly or push the ball, then the backspin that's already on the ball coming towards you will sort of cancel out anything you're trying to do. So I think you really need to try and, like I say, create that racket speed using the wrist, like I said. But yeah, no, that's all good. I think that's one of the hardest balls to deal with, I'd say. And like we keep coming back to it, I know, but at Elliswick, we play on carpet courts. Half the year it's raining. We get a lot of low, horrible, messy, scrappy balls to deal with. So, like I say, the two techniques we've spoken about there are definitely something that, that you're going to have to use at some point. So hopefully you heard some of that, if not all of it.
Yeah, we got most of it.
Moving on.
Can I just ask, do you, because they are technically more difficult shots, or they got some difficulty to them, is there an easier way in terms of playing cross court or playing it down the line? Does it matter? Is there a safer shot if you're dealing with a harder ball, or does it come back to some of that previous discussion we've had about, sort of the balance of play and trying to play to their weakness and that sort of stuff? Or is it just from a pure technical perspective, are these things just easier to hit, for example, cross court?
Well, it depends. Like, firstly, if it's doubles, like you wouldn't really be going in up the lines to the tram lines unless the person was out of position to start with, or if you felt they were trying to encroach across. So it's for tactical reasons and where they are. I'd say technically it's easy on the forehand side. If I was on the deuce side, to get it cross court, because of the smaller action, it kind of whips around. So it makes it a little bit more natural to hit it cross court. It's probably a little bit harder if you're on the double side, moving around to your forehand to get it to go to the other diagonal. But it's not to. I suppose it's like creating an angle is a bit easier. It's more natural to come around this side of the ball. Whereas if you're having to create a bit more angle coming on the inside of it, is a little bit harder. But at the same time, that's more if you're trying to create more of an extreme angles from it. If you're looking to aim towards the inside tram line if you're on the advantage side, getting it cross court towards the inside tram line at the back, that's not too sort of difficult to do.
Okay.
I think the other thing, Giles, especially where the ball is low, as we've spoken about, you want to get the ball up and down again. Obviously, you're closer to the opponent's baseline, so any extra distance you can give yourself is obviously going to help, and it's going to mean there's a less chance that you'll hit the ball long. Obviously, cross court, as you know, diagonal distance than down line. So, would say cross court, especially when the ball is low, because again, going cross court, you're going over the lowest point as well. So, although they might only be small differences, obviously over the course of a match or the course of a year's tennis, if you hit 500 of those shots, the percentages start to actually mean something, don't they? So you just always bear that in mind. But, yeah.
I think it got a bit crackly, but I heard sort of Rupert sort of reference the lower part of the net as well, if anyone sort of missed that. So obviously, as we know, like the net is almost like this. So by cross court, you're always going over the lowest point. Whereas it might only sort of vary by that much, but like I said already, with this type of ball, we're looking to keep it low over the net already, so it sort of just gives that little bit more margin, that particular one. So that's dealing with like the slice one. Looks at the sort of the loopier one. The next one sort of look at is dealing with like a faster shot. So we talked a little bit about return of serve, but we'll now look at it in the sort of scenario where you're in a sort of ground stroke rally and someone's hit a strong shot to you. Alternatively, it could be when someone's at the net and they've hit like a strong sort of volley towards you on your half of the court. So it has some similarities around like the return of the first serve, and same sort of principle. So we have less time, and that means we need to get the preparation better in place. And because we got less time, it's then how do we gain time back through our technique? So one is when it's hit harder, the preparation starts straight away. We should be doing this anyway for every single shot. Like as soon as the ball hits the other person's racket, like I think you've probably heard me use the phrase trigger movements before. As soon as they've hit it, we should be preparing instantly. Now, on a slower ball, we can get away with not preparing straight away. But like if we're kind of into the habit of not preparing straight away, when it comes faster and we then haven't triggered and gone, we're then playing catch up and we can be late. So first thing we can do to buy back time is prepare early. Like I said, should be doing it all the time, but extremely important now. Second thing is the size of the swing. So off our normal one, we use our nice big take back, which is obviously going to allow us to create more power. But because the ball's coming in faster, and if we're too big, we can then be late, and then we're going to get sort of caught out. So what we do is we probably create the same space to the side, but if I was sort of hitting this way, where I'd normally come right back to sort of hit, I'd get the same space to the side, but drop more level to me. So I'd start here, but then my hand's not going to go as far back compared to a normal sort of forehand. So by making the loop smaller, again, saving me a bit of time. And the last thing we can do to sort of buy back time, so we started early, we've made it smaller, is going to be a little bit quicker as well. And what we're sort of doing there is getting ourselves set up so we win the contact point. Essentially, if I've hit a strong shot against anyone, it's looking to destroy their contact point so it loses their control. Because again, we're rushing them time, they're under pressure. So those few things are starting straight away to put time back in our advantage. So it's going to allow us to sort of win the contact point. Now, from here, we sort of set ourselves up. We've got different options again, sort of tactically. So depending on how much pressure we're under, like and how almost the speed of shot that we're not used to, or it's out of our comfort zone. If we're like then sort of defending, we come back to like last week or the week before. Success of defending is getting it over and in. Okay, so the simplest technical way, if someone's really rocketed one at me, I'd sort of be here, sort of short, sort of almost just blocking it back, keeping it very, very simple. Just because all the speed's on the ball, all I need to do is just direct it. That's all I need to do to stay in the point. So I think we're just using like the phrases that we sort of learnt the other week when we're defending. We got staying and we got neutralising. So staying is literally I'm under pressure and the likelihood is they can attack the next one. Neutralising is I'm under pressure, but I'm giving them a shot that they should be rallying on the next one. So if I was just using this technique, the only way that I can neutralise it is by getting it towards the baseline. So obviously then if they're behind it, it's not so smart to attack. Then after that one, if it's just sort of blocking back, if I'm, let's say, I can do it majority of the time, get it in, but they're constantly attacking the next one, I'm under a lot more pressure, then we need to do a little bit more with it. So if I'm trying to send the ball back with a bit more on, I've got a choice. So in terms of the size of swing, I've got a choice of after, or I've got a choice of before, which is going to create more speed, racket speed for me. Now the before one, as we already discussed, if we try and start going bigger before, we're going to lose the contact point, lose control. But what I can start to do is look at sort of having a small take back and then almost just sort of sending it back and through a little bit more. So almost like you're guiding it back. So like I said, if it's coming fast, all the speed's on the ball and you can just send it back with the speed. The best thing about this is the other person's putting all that effort in and whacking the ball, and you're almost sort of then nonchalantly, small take back and just using their speed and just sending it back as a nice sort of rally shot, and you sort of neutralise the point. And over a long sort of period of time, if one person's having to take big risks the whole time, big shots, and when you're under pressure, you can just simplify this sort of take back and just push it, kind of sort of push it back in, then that's going to sort of do the job for you very well. And in terms of speed, common, again, like we talk about common mistakes, what we can see is if someone hits the ball hard at you, the person who it's coming towards then has the tendency or the want to try and hit it hard back. It's almost that sort of like, well, you can do this to me, I can do it to you. And often that's where like mistakes will come from. Like it's just trying to whack a hard ball back sort of too much. Yes, it can be done, but it's obviously a lot harder. And if we're taking too many sort of technical risks into the shot by being too big, it's gonna lose control. So in terms of sort of like outcome back, if we get it again, because we are defending and neutralising 6 out of 10 back, and we're able to sort of get it deep, we've neutralised the point. They're in out of position. As we sort of obviously get better and better, and all depends on our opponent and what they can do. If just by pushing back towards the baseline, for majority of club players, that's neutralised. If you are playing a strong player who just to push back towards the baseline, they can still come round and rip the ball and really keep you under pressure. Obviously, then we need to do more. So obviously, like the top guys, when we watch them, they don't just have a hard shot and they push back. So when it's sort of coming sort of faster to be able to give out a better, stronger shot, it then sort of comes down to like the body a lot more. So with the first one, it's almost sort of just guiding it sort of through. The next one is like we're short, but what we do is it's all about the timing with our sort of body into the shot. So as all good technique, if I got my racket prepared, if I turn my hips into the shot, it brings me up to the contact point rather than just my arm. So if I had a strong shot and I just came in and just timed my body movement into the shot, that's actually going to, because more body parts, more power. I'm still not swinging sort of too fast still, but I'm using the speed, and my body weight is actually going to sort of send it back through to the other person. So it's good timing, good use of my body. Again, I'm not looking to sort of rip it back just as fast as them, but if I'm hitting a strong, solid rally shot, and when it's effective, that's going to achieve that effect that I'm after. I said we certainly wouldn't, when we're defending, we're not looking to attack, are we? But we can then have the skill set to then allow us to be under pressure and then put it back here into the rally. And then that's, job done from where we are. And then when we've got a bit more time, we get the bigger swing and we can influence the point a little bit more. Roops, anything that you sort of add to what we're sort of talking about around the fastball?
I think sort of tactically, the thing to remember is just if someone is hitting the ball very, very hard, chances are if they try that too many times, they will make mistakes. Although, like Ben said, sometimes the natural reaction is to react with speed. or power. Actually, just by getting it back, sometimes that's enough, because the next shot they try and hit, they make a mistake. I think technically the biggest thing I see, definitely, I don't know if Ben will agree, the thing where people go wrong most is the side take. And I think it's hard, it's probably one of the hardest things, because it's like a reaction you do almost subconsciously. As soon as the ball comes over the net, you take that racket back too far, too soon. Once you've done that, you've scuppered your chances really of being able to control that shot. Because like we say, the contact point's got to be the priority for every shot. That needs to be out in front of you. And as soon as that racket goes back too far, you then haven't got time. So then we see a couple of things. Either people jam up and sort of stop the racket at the contact point, being very sudden sort of snap and got very little control, or people want to go back, try and swing through, but they swing through too late and the ball goes out right. So it doesn't matter what you try and do from there, really taking it back too far, you've got very little chance of making it work. So if you want to work on one thing to improve, your dealing with fast balls, is really try and nail the idea that we're going to take the racket back earlier, faster, but also shorter. And I think understand the reasons why. And if you really remind yourself the reasons why, then you will be able to create a habit out of that. And it's not just that, we haven't got time to take it back far, but it's that we don't want to either. Remember, the reason we do a big take back normally is to create space, to create racket speed on the way forwards. Now, if we're looking at a fast ball, we don't want to react to that ball with a fast racket. So not only do we not have time to do a big take back, actually we don't want a big take back. Even if we did have time, we still wouldn't choose to get that racket back and do a big fast swing. Reacting to a fast racket and will work. If you really remind us of the reasons why, you can start to make some sort of steps towards sort of controlling those fast ones a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, then it's never going to be an easy ball to deal with. We all struggle with them. I think it's just something that, if you stick to those steps and just keep going with them, then you'll make improvements. But it's one of those things that takes time.
Yeah, I think we got majority of that. Lost a teeny bit in the middle, but yeah, it's just the bits to sort of pick up from, like Rupert, where he's thinking just as much as important is when it is fast. It was just those three things we sort of spoke about, like a bit smaller behind, prepare early, win the contact point. Because if you don't win the contact point, it doesn't matter what we do next. Like, it's just winning the contact point when it's faster, and then from that, obviously, like the decision making of what we're trying to do. I think a lot of these sort of the things that sort of coming up is the reading of the ball, the perception, isn't it? Like if we haven't picked up it's coming faster and are automatically gone behind us, and then we've realised it's too late. With the earlier one, if we think we're in the right place and we've misjudged the ball and we're out of position, by that point it's too late. So it's reading the ball and having understanding how technique adapts. A lot of sort of things we have is about fundamentals of the technique. But then good technique is adaptable to the situation. So it's like how, in these situations, how we adapt our core skills to deal with these particular types of balls. So the other one we sort of wanted to talk about was we had like the deeper floaty one before. The other one is almost that floaty one that's sort of landing in the service box, holding up and like intuitively we know that's the sitting duck of the point. That's the one that we're going to knock away for a winner. Like, it doesn't get any easier than that from the baseline. I've won the point already. Oh, I just hit it into the net. Oh, what's going on? This is so frustrating. I've just hit it out the back. So this one is my phrase for this one is the easy hard one. Now, in terms of the ball in, it doesn't get any easier. Nice floaty height, lots of time, not much pressure. We can get up to the ball very comfortably and sort of, rally it back in or do what we like with it back. So in terms of pressure for us, it's very easy. It's called the easy hard one because if we want to actually play an effective shot that makes them defend, it's actually a bit harder to get this bit sort of done. And like intuitive. We know how easy it is. We know tactically what we want to do, and then when it doesn't sort of happen, it's just frustrating, isn't it? It's like we've done the hard work, we've played nice rally shots, we've got our reward, we've got the easy one, miss it. So with this one, it comes back again to sort of tactical and sort of intention. So we know we're trying to either build or finish. So build, like we know they're going to get it, but they're under pressure. Finish means we're trying to hit it past them. So like job done, they don't get a racket to it. So when we sort of come up, it's like one, having very clear in our mind what we're doing. Where some people can go wrong is they've got this easy one. It's like, well, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, like going through their head. And as they come up to take on the ball, we haven't decided clearly what we are doing. And then we're a little bit sort of lost in a blur, and then we can make mistakes through decisions. Whereas sometimes I can do drills where it's like feed the ball to them and go, okay, the cone in that corner there, that's your target. We're just going to go aiming for that every time. And people are usually more effective straight away at just doing that because they know already what they're doing. So in terms of a decision-making sort of process, what I advise for this is make your decision early in what you're trying to do. And you only change it if your opponent's position does something before you hit the ball. So, for example, on a singles court, it's like my opponent's right bang in the middle. I'm coming up sort of player I've picked to go up the line. So I'm committed to doing that. But then if I see them move that way before I hit the ball, I can then sort of just come around the ball and just hit it into the open space that they're not. If they are still in exactly the same place before I'm about to hit it, in my mind, that's my goal, that's my target. I'm just going to go out and hit that target. So just by like having our clear decision will make it sort of easier for us. Then with the decision, so we've got where we're hitting it, how we're hitting it is the other thing as well. So we've got, there's 5 ball characteristics that we have in tennis. So it's the height we hit over the net, the depth, the direction, the spin, the speed. So those are the 5 things that we've got in tennis, and that's what we're going to sort of, that's all we got, that's what we stick to. So in terms of sort of height on the easy hard one, we know we're going to be aiming it lower over the net than a rally ball. We're inside the court, we don't need the height. The direction, it's just we're clear with where we're going. Usually speaking, it's going to be 1 or 2, like left or right. That's where we're going to be sort of hitting it. Depth, reasonable amount of depth. Spin, probably depending on the height that we achieve. You know, we talked about before the low one, we're going to really rip up the ball where we can on that one. With this one, we're coming up, we're looking to be around sort of shoulder to waist height. We're looking sort of, if we play topspin, almost like a fraction less topspin than we would do normally. But it's sort of, the understanding is because of the height and where we are, and also less spin makes the ball go through the court a bit quicker. So it's just taking a bit off, but it's not flat. We always want to keep a little bit on if we can. And then the speed, it's that understanding of what we think is needed to get the job done. So I think we talked about finish before, like finish, we use the minimum speed to get it done if they're out of position. Whereas like if they're in a good position, we might know that we've got to hit it like sort of into the 8s, 9s to sort of get them sort of defending. So we're clear in our mind in how we're doing it. We've got our sort of focus and where we're going. And then next up is obviously like the technique that's going to like back it up for us. So what we want to be doing is we move, because we're moving up the court for this one, is again sort of common mistakes. People move forwards in their ready positions, then try and prepare as they get there. So what we want to be doing is you're coming forwards and you've already got your racket prepared as you're moving up to the ball. The second thing is you move up to the ball in a more sort of sideways on sort of position. So I think the phrase is sort of javelin steps, is kind of like sometimes what you'll sort of do. So if you're moving forwards, rather than sort of moving forwards and then trying to turn, as you're sort of coming up, you're already sort of moving sideways onto the ball. So essentially you're already lining up your feet better for the shot, rather than get there and turn to be at the last second, which is going to get you in trouble. So you got your racket ready, your feet ready, your racket sort of prepare that little bit higher, and then it's sort of getting like a full sort of swing through as you sort of take on the shot, clearly knowing where you are aiming it. It's, again, it's an easy, hard one. So it's obviously easier to say, but like having the understanding of what you're trying to do, getting yourself set up in the right way, will make it easier to sort of execute this shot. And then also like mark it on what you're trying to achieve. And obviously who you're playing against will sort of differ. If you're playing someone who's like a whip it round the court very quick, you're going to have to play a stronger shot to have the same effect. If you're playing someone who's not such a great mover, it doesn't need to be as good. So it's knowing who you're up against just to sort of stack the risk reward when you're sort of taking this shot on. But it's one, and Rupert will certainly agree in a minute, it's one that you see missed a lot of times, and especially with the situation. And probably the biggest reason that we see it happen is people try to do too much with it, try and hit it too hard, or try and be too precise to the lines as they're sort of playing the shot, and they get caught out because of it. Or alternatively, people are can be far too passive. They get the easy shot and come forwards and just push it back to the person where they are, and then just sort of scurry back to the baseline after. And that we've gone from a position of strength and gone, oh, there we go again. Obviously, what we don't want is to be in a position of strength and just whack it out the back and lose the point as well, being so close to the victory with our advantage. For yourself, Rupes, is there any sort of key things around the sort of easy, hard one that I've missed or you want to elaborate on?
No, I'm just going to mention footwork. So, as you guys know, with every shot, footwork is key. Something Ben and I bang on about, not even as much as we should, because we don't have enough time with nights. Some people would now need it. If work is so important, and I think for the shot, it's just as important. Something you see quite a lot of the time. Almost.
Rupes, you're probably a little bit too crackly on this one. I can't even decipher, sadly, the words, so I can reinforce it.
I will send you what I want you to say.
Well, text me across quickly, and then I'll put what Rupert wants to say. So for you guys, any sort of little bits that you want me to elaborate? Make space. Okay, yeah. So what Rupert sort of said there is like with the short one, a little bit to do with what I was talking about in terms of being sort of sideways on, coming up towards it. Is imagine if the ball is here, common mistakes, people go straight towards it and then try and make the space at the end. So if I knew the contact point was sort of in this sort of area here, as I'm moving forwards, I'm already creating the space with my upward movement. I'm lining myself up to have the correct space straight away, rather than come in and find myself a little bit too narrow as I play the shot. So in terms of the preparation with the feet and how we do it, it's obviously lining up so we can contact point with the correct space as we play the shot. One of my favourite sort of phrases in coaching is a good swing only works with a good contact point. So we can have a great swing, but if we're never in the right place, it doesn't mean toffee, basically. So like by having a good swing, we need that contact point. So with that easy short one, we're coming forwards, but we make sure we got the right space as we sort of come up and sort of take it on. We added some bits to the groups. As you get close to the ball, nice semicircle to create space. Yep. Decision early. Make a decision early. Yeah. So we've got Rupert sort of. You can read the points Rupert sort of put on there as well. Sorry.
It's quite comprehensive. There's a lot on there.
Oh no, it's very good. Everyone's quickly sort of going on. They're I can see copy and paste going on as we speak. Make it so everyone's got it exactly sort of down.
I can see delete.
Make sure trying to attack the ball. Yeah, so it was making sure we are having the right intentions, generate the pace ourselves. So obviously that's creating the right sort of space. We obviously are taking the racket back further on this particular ball. We don't want to be too close. Make decision early and stick to it. Yep. So it's just reinforcing what I said there. As you get close to the ball, semicircle. So what the semicircle sort of bit means is obviously as we're sort of coming round, we're just creating that sort of space this way, especially if it's a central ball. We've got to make the space as we sort of come sort of towards it. So it's just all to do with sort of set up again with that. Yeah, so I mean, for us, those were the four main ones that we sort of thought of that we wanted to talk to you guys. I mean, you might have certain ones that catch you out as well. that you might want us just to sort of quickly cover over and have a little sort of discussion about? So is there any sort of types of balls that you sort of find a little bit more difficult, or you think you should be doing more with as we're playing? We can sort of open that up to you guys.
I think you kind of covered the one that I would have raised, which is the very deep ball, where if you get back, you're going to struggle to get back because you haven't got enough room at the back of the court or whatever. But I think that's the one where you're saying you're kind of forced to take that one early. You know, if it's really landing right on that baseline, that's the time when you would like take it early.
Yeah, so I'll elaborate on, because we haven't sort of discussed that one per se. We covered more the floating one and making a choice. When you're playing someone who can hit a faster ball with quite a lot of height and topspin, now with the floating one, we'll always have time, because with topspin it kicks on and moves forwards. With a flat one, it just holds up and will drop. So with a flat one, we can always get back and wait for it and play it. With a topspin one, we won't have time to get back for it to drop. So almost like I always sort of describe it as plan A. Can we get back behind it and play it at the right height? Yes, we do. With the fast sort of ones coming in, and especially with like a bit of height and bounce as well, is we don't want to get caught out sort of back here. So it's sometimes we've got to make a decision. If we don't think we can get back, we have to meet it on the rise. So we sort of come back and then we sort of meet it on the rise sort of here, rather than sort of end up like under sort of lots of pressure, ball behind you and sort of flailing at the ball. So with that, that particular one, sort of a highest bouncing spin one, it's again, perception. Perception seems to be the word that comes up a lot around these sort of topics, but reading that ball and going to meet it as it sort of comes up. So often that would be the one that is bouncing around the 3/4 length of the court, around that sort of area, and it's going to bounce up and kick and almost push you. It'll put you in the back fence if not. So you've got to then go and meet it with that one, but you might not necessarily meet that one with as much attacking intent as one off that was sort of floated up. Does that make sense, Giles?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, no, perfect. And I was just thinking, if it's on the backhand side where that sort of half drive return is more difficult, presumably you can just kind of take it on the up with a bit of slice. You can, how do you handle it on the backhand, which is just harder to get that everything you've kind of described?
What I'd say is the one weakness of the one-hander is backhands up here. Unbelievably hard, like the strength we have to have here to hit and come over the ball and to keep that contact in front, unbelievably difficult. What I'd say for majority of even up to good level club players, you can play a far more effective slice from here than they can topspin.
Yeah.
So we're talking those sort of ones like high level sort of club players and above need this, but you can play a very effective shot from here that can do it. On the flip side, like what you can do as well is like to stop it being up here, Giles, is you can, again, like we just talked about on the forehand, come up and take it on the rise and be at this height, which is going to be easier for you to then play through the shot, rather than if you realise you're going to be up high, then you're going to struggle. So again, like the perception and your footwork will get you in position to either play sort of more like a topspin hit through backhand. If you're going to find yourself stuck up here, I would just say go slice, and if you're playing a level where people then like the net players can pick you off, or if you're playing singles and they get you up there and then they can then pick you off because the slice isn't strong. Well, even A would make the slice a bit stronger, but we might then need to sort of add something in more. But majority of the times, like if you're there, that's a tough shot. We are defending regardless. Yeah. And then can we stay in the point? Because sometimes people will just flap and really struggle. But then can we neutralise it by a good slice, cross court and sort of deep towards the other person's backhand? They're going to not be able to particularly get it up into that same position again. So it gets you back in the rally and using your strengths.
Yeah, I just find that technically that taking it early with a top spin on the backhand side, just so much harder than on the forehand side. I don't know why. It just, strength between forehand and backhand. So I think I would be inclined to go with the slice. It's just a percentage shot.
Up here, yeah, definitely. I would suggest learning to develop the one where it's coming in and meeting it there, even if it's sort of like, I think, remember I talked about dealing with the fast one, like short, almost like learning to sort of push through it, just being here and, a little bit of spin and just have a competent enough cross-court shot that's not easy to attack. It then just doesn't, it just means that whenever someone's there, they're not just getting chipped back or sliced back. So you can do both. So for whatever tactical reason, you can step in and meet it and sort of hit through. It doesn't, like on your forehand, you're always going to be able to rip through better because it's the stronger side, but being competent enough to deal with that one is something to work towards. And without obviously like seeing it in the situation, obviously there's different things that will go through, that could happen. But like the key thing is, as I meet it, I just make sure that I'm strong with my upper body, set well as I'm coming in, and I'm really getting a good contact point as I meet it. If I'm late, I'm going to really struggle. I'm not going to be able to do it. So it's just, again, make sure I'm winning that contact point to then be through and hit through the court. But I'm not looking, again, what I'm deciding to do, I'm not looking to rip that one. I'm just looking to control the space of the court by not having to back off too much. I can hold my ground, hit a, reasonably solid, again, that's probably the key word, solid shot. Whereas obviously, yes, on the forehand, I can rip it. But on the backhand, if you get it cross court and you get on their backhand and it's solid, they're not going to do much damage to you on the next one. And you've kept your court position better.
Thank you. That's helpful.
That's okay. Brian, I thought I saw you looking at
Yeah,
it here.
I just, Ben, can you just show me again on the technique with the two of the shots? I think the fast low one where you're going to use topspin, and you use the comparison of the windscreen wiper. And as I understand it, the face of the racket is rather like a windscreen wiper, is coming fast across the back of the ball like that, is it? And then the second question related to that, if it's the slower ball, the easy, difficult ball, or whatever the expression is.
Easy, hard one, Brian.
Easy, hard one. Is it the same action? In other words, rather like a windscreen wiper, but not quite as emphasised.
Yeah. So I'll cover the first one first, then sort of go on to the second one. So the first one. So so what you're sort of doing is it's the racket sort of coming around your hand. You'll be a little bit lower with your body as well. Yeah. And what we're sort of doing is we are sort of whipping through this way. So we're coming up the ball here. So if you saw me from like the side, this is where it's quite a very light impact, which is going to create all the spin. So I'm there whipping up and through. And one thing I'll add with it is when we accelerate, Brian. So with this one, you almost want to be accelerating on impact. You don't want to be accelerating too much into impact with this one.
I see.
So you sort of below the ball, and then you can accelerate through here, which will make it easy. Again, we shouldn't be too far back anyway, but if we're trying to accelerate too early, it's going to make it a little bit harder to do so. Yeah. So like the bit you're sort of talking about is almost like this bit here with the racket, isn't it? Yeah. In terms of the main one. So on the other one, so if I've got that sort of short, easy one, I'm here coming through, like essentially what's happening, there's a lot more body coming into it, a lot more backwards to forwards coming into it, but we still, to get like the coating, there's still that element of this here. But what it's doing, it's almost, it's happening all the way through the action rather than being the main part of the action.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, it does sort of happen, but not as pronounced as it sort of comes through.
Good. Thank you.
Anyone else, guys? Sort of any sort of particular ones that sort of come up for them? Anything for you, Mark? Put you on the spot, Mark.
I can't. Unmute myself. I've unmuted myself now. I'm trying to think. Really. Don't know.
It's been a while since we've been on the court as well, hasn't it? So certainly makes it a little bit harder. How about you, Andy?
I think the only other one, Ben, is the one that you gave me a lesson on, which is not a normal return shot, but is dealing with that very slow sort of doddy drop second serve you sometimes get, and which I find equally difficult to that easy, difficult one that you were talking about earlier on, which is I tend to hit it out the back. So I won't go through it now because you gave me some hints on that, which were very useful.
What you're saying, Andy, is you don't want everyone to have the same good hints that you got when you had the lesson.
I want to be able to use them against Brian at some point.
They were effective. They would work well. And I suppose essentially, like if they, depending on like the height of the ball, obviously that was the one, like the lower one that we can use if we get ourselves in position. It's like the higher one that we can use, and then essentially we talked again about it was like understanding what is the success, having a clear sort of decision in how to sort of play it. And then I think when you, for yourself, Andy, when you had that, like when you had a slightly clearer game plan and then started executing it, you're able to do it over and over again. Then when you played others, it was effective and consistent, wasn't it? Rather than, again, what we said, like common mistakes is trying to do too much sometimes, or thinking we need to do more than we actually have to, and then causing us to make sort of too many mistakes. And you know, essentially, again, it's that idea of like you got the advantage and just throwing it away from here. So it's understanding sometimes I can have the advantage and it's okay to stay here on the next one. Just keep them under pressure. I don't need to hit that winner each time as it's sort of coming through.
Yeah, that was key. That was very helpful because I was trying to win it off the first one rather than keep the advantage in my court, as it were, and then try and kill it later on in the rally. But
no, it was and it worked well. I was going to say, Gillian, Jill, have you got anything?
When you're hitting the ball on the rise, is the ball still very much in front of you, or is it to the side? I mean, compared to when you're hitting it when it's falling.
Yeah, so in terms of like the contact point, it's every contact point, it wants to be in front of your body. So if I'm hitting this way, so it's always in front. And the one thing that we've got in terms of like the space is the higher the shot, the further away that you want your contact point to be from your body. Still the same thing, always like the same plane in front of you, but the lower we actually hit it, the closer it comes towards us.
Right. Okay.
Like sometimes this is where, again, like sort of where we see some sort of mistakes is people line themselves up for their standard sort of contact height, sort of position in space, which would be round about here. Now, if I've lined it up and I've got a higher one, and that's me going straight up, can you see that I'm suddenly looking from quite comfortable to quite awkward? For when it's higher, it's further away. And the same thing with the low one is a low one would be quite close to our body, whereas this is my height. Just about seeing this is where I would be on a normal ground stroke. If I was playing it there, suddenly I'm overstretching for it. So the contact point does sort of it kind of goes from low, it kind of goes out, and it's just to do with our wingspan on the height that we're sort of playing the shot. So that does sometimes come into effect. So it's judging obviously the space we need to be, but the space we need to be in relation to the height that we're impacting the ball.
Yeah, great, thank you.
That's okay. Gillian, if you're there, do you have anything you want to ask? Possibly not. So just quickly sort of covering, like, so Jill asked about sort of question of the week. I think we all seem to be taking it in turns. You're coordinating well because we only have one question every week, so this is good. Jill's question was just around sort of like lob, like what to do with the lob and things like that. So just as a quick sort of overview summary, because I don't think we'll go into like a whole sort of topic on the lob. For myself, there's kind of like three sort of levels of lob. So first one is the open racket face, over it goes, plenty of height over the person. They're not going to get sort of near it. but obviously the baseline in doubles have got plenty of time to get across and get it. So that's like the first one, which is about just understanding racket face, height, send it over. Not too much technical skill required. It's just understanding it's low to high, open the racket face. Second one is almost like our normal forehand, but we're just lifting up a little bit more. It has a little bit of topspin on, but with this one, we're trying to almost, if you imagine our opponent reaching up with their racket, we're almost just looking to get it through like an alleyway or about this, just above their reach. And then obviously not too hard that it goes out the back. So we're trying to control the height and speeds perfectly to get it up and over them and drop. So with this one, it's going to be harder for the person at the baseline to get to because there's a bit more speed on the ball compared to a very floaty one over. And the third stage is a sort of a topspin lob. So with this one, we're getting below the ball and we're really sort of ripping up the ball this way. So we're very steep, low to high. You might even see sort of some people sort of playing it almost Nadal-like sort of finish where we're coming up and coming this way rather than sort of backwards, forwards, because we're really coming up the ball because we want to generate the height, but really skim the ball as we're sort of doing so. And what the benefit of this one is that we can get it again over the person's like head because of the height. The topspin is going to bring it down. But on top of that, the topspin is going to shoot off and away. So we can actually get a faster one over the person's head and the person at the baseline is going to struggle to get it. And the second thing with the topspin lob is with the flat one and the sort of the block one, the person at the net, if they're quick enough, they can run back after the bounce and get it back in play. A topspin lob, usually they chase you after it, just bounces away and they just can't get after it. So the topspin lob just takes out the net player completely from having any chance of sort of getting it. So those are like the three levels without obviously going into like a huge amount of detail. Obviously open racket face, almost like just lifting the ball a bit normally and just really ripping it up high. Lots of spin, getting it up and down. What's Rupert added here quickly? Topspin lob seems scary and difficult. Oh. Just think of it as a topspin shot, but play off your back foot, lean back slightly. Yeah. So it's just, yes, again, looks like some of our other shots is making sure we're committed and it's just getting that elevation. If you're getting like lots of sort of skim on the ball and we're getting the lift, we're not going to send it flying. It's going to sort of get enough height and the spin will drop it back in.
So Ben, when you get a lob and what do you play that lob? I mean, quite often what you find in sort of club games is that somebody does a lob and then you lob it back and they lob it back. And it's like how you can get to a point of getting confidence of taking that ball and doing something a little bit different with it to change the game.
Yeah, I mean, so to start with, the reason why that happens, the easiest thing to do with a shot, you know, we talked about the height, depth, direction, spin, speed and spin. The easiest thing to do in tennis is to send it back with the identically of what it's got. The more things that you change, the harder it is to do. So the easiest thing is to send it back the same direction, same height, same spin. That's the easiest thing to do. The more things you change, the harder it's going to be. Quite often, those sort of rally exchanges in sort of club level, it's often almost a hybrid, or it's either like the chip one or slightly pushed through as it's sort of coming through. So the reason it can go on and on and on and on is because the poor net player can't get there. And the skill level isn't too high that the other person's then able to do it back, and it's easier to do it back than actually sort of hit through. So with this, in terms of sort of like how, let's say you're the one who's received it, what you can do is, so like one thing is you can look, just sort of try and get back in sort of rally mode with it. So sort of like hit through rather than sort of get drawn into up and down. Or the second thing is, if you can, like go into like the topspin lob sort of realm, it then makes it hard for the person to sort of block it back, because if they're receiving that ball with the same thing, height bouncing in, it's easy for them to send it back. If it's coming in with spin and height and bounce, a little bit like Giles's question earlier, suddenly like you can pin them on the back fence. They've got to choose to sort of come on, take it on the rise. It's going to be a lot harder for them to sort of keep it going back like that safely away from your partner at the net. And the good thing with that one coming in, it's a lot easier to lift with spin when it's dropping down at you like this. So when we do a lob, it's often when we've got a bit of time, the ball's got a little bit of flight, because it makes it easier for us to achieve it. I mean, you certainly wouldn't try a topspin lob off like that one of those ones we described earlier, the low slice one. To get down and up and lift it up, very, very difficult. Off a fast one, yeah, we could block it over, but we certainly wouldn't be trying to lift a topspin lob off a very fast shot.
Yeah, you lob onto the, or if you can't do that, to lob onto their backhand so they do a weaker return, obviously.
Yeah, again, it's those sort of strategies that will exploit the weakness. Depending on almost like lobbing the partner to make the move, then it's easier to then, like if they're on the forehand side, if you lob them again, they're certainly on the backhand, so it's going to make it harder. So yeah, using our different strategies that we've learned as well will certainly help. You just about there still, Roops?
I'm just about. I've got a cat lurking around me.
Well, you got a freeze. I can just see a freeze frame at the moment. So
Yeah.
Here he is. Yeah. So I mean, if there's any other sort of questions from you guys around like the topic, just sort of let us know. Like I said, same thing. If you've got a question that you want us to cover, you can just drop me a text or an email. Then we'll cover it. We've got 3 more weeks of Wednesdays. And hopefully the recording will work this time. If any of you guys, we've still got the recording, so like when we get back to the club, we can bring our laptop down, you can have a hard drive copy of it. So that's a way round of our technical glitch. / copywriting glitch.
Right.
But yeah, no, that's everything for today, guys. Thank you for coming down again.
Thanks.
Always.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. It's brilliant.
Oh, quick
Okay, guys.
Thank you,
Julian.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Cheers.
See you next
Take
week,
care.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.